All set.
Okay. Now it's part of our presentation. Just a second. I don't have it up in front of me, but we had technical difficulties earlier. We took it down, but that's okay. This is the one. This is it. Okay, hopefully that's going to go up correctly. Excellent. Well, thank you everybody for being along with us for the duration of our conference, and those that have been with us online. So I'm going to conclude our conference first off also again by saying special thank yous to everyone who was involved in organizing the conference and supporting the conference financially or logistically. Certainly we're grateful for the hotel staff who did a wonderful job. I know they're not in here, but we can give them a round of applause. And what I was going to talk about today to send us off is kind of talking a little bit about our strategic direction as an organization. As we talked a lot about some of the great things that have happened recently, but we want to tell you what we're planning to take things to the next level and move forward. So the main components of that will be threefold. So we'll talk a little bit about what our directions are, investing in research and quality of life improvement for our APC champions. We'll talk a little bit about the awareness and operations aspects that we're going to continue to expand upon. And of course, we'll expand a little bit more about our fundraising plans and efforts moving forward. So talking about research and quality of life. Of course, we're going to, primarily our chief support has gone with Duke University. We are going to continue to support those mouse models, both the ATP 1A3 and 1A2. We'll continue to do fund functional studies, treatment trials of existing compounds. And those will include the different mutations of ATP1A3, the one that primary ATP1A2 mutation, and there's a potential of looking at some others depending on how things progress with some of those trials. Of course, we'll continue to make significant investments in the APC Multidisciplinary Clinic. For those of you who don't know, we are an entirely volunteer organization, but we do support a staff person. Melissa, who you saw here during this conference, is a Duke employee, but her salary is supported completely by our organization. And so she is a critical part of that. So it's nice that we also get to provide some direction in that, which is very helpful in terms of helping to keep that moving smoothly, moving forward. We're going to expand our ability to provide financial and logistical support for families to attend the multidisciplinary clinic. We recognize that that can be a very daunting task, especially for great distances, dealing with insurance, dealing with just the cost of traveling. And so we will continue to look for ways to partner with our families to remove those obstacles so that nobody has those in the way of getting to the clinic or getting the care and improvement of quality of life that their children and adults with APC deserve. And then we'll continue to work with the APC multidisciplinary team to develop new approaches to manage the symptoms of APC. As we come, we had the recently published papers that had some guidelines for care. We've had the study that came out that looked at the motor features in AHC that's going to be very helpful for families to use that to obtain speech services and have them paid for, or to look at the potential of getting adaptive equipment for communication, those sorts of things. So we'll continue to look for other ways that we can provide resources that will empower you to be able to take on additional support mechanisms for your kit. And then beyond that, while these are some very good tactical approaches, so we are looking for those off-the-shelf compounds that might be therapeutic for AHC. We are also engaging in investing in research to look at the potential of developing novel treatments that don't exist today, compounds that don't exist today, or the potentials of other technologies such as exome skipping, gene therapy. I know those have been some of the other questions that have come in after our session earlier this morning. We continue to work with our medical advisory board. We saw Dr. Pearl, who presented during this session amongst others, and we will actually expand that medical advisory board to include some other people with expertise so they can advise us as to the viability of those potential technologies to explore. And we know that Dr. McCarty is doing a great job of staying on top of that as well. We applaud his efforts in that. We've also continued our investment in Columbia University's team. You did see Melody McSweeney, who presented the work that they're doing on the optogenetics studies and understanding the molecular consequences of ATP1A3 and 1A2. We know that those are important to bring up clues for the potential for treatment approaches. And of course, they continue to also screen for candidate compounds that then are further investigated in collaboration with Duke on the AHC mice. And also very important to our mission is to help those who have AHC symptoms but have not found a root cause yet to go ahead and get to that root cause. So we are actively investing in the search for the root cause of those atypical or non-ATP1A3 or 1A2 cases of AHC. We have also just recently awarded a grant to Aarhus University in Denmark. The team in Denmark has done a lot of research in terms of understanding the underlying mechanisms of AHC and has had some progress in the potentials for treatment. So this neuroelectrophysiological study, and try saying that 10 times fast, is a follow-on to some previously published research and may shed light on the viability possibility of exome skipping gene editing approaches. Again, we just awarded $30,000 US to that team. And I do want to say a special thank you to Tony, our VP, in that he is a dedicated person to fundraising, even at his son's own wedding. He was talking with individuals there, and that is actually how that project came to be, that people that were there attending the wedding all came together. These are some people with some deep pockets, and right there on the spot, they decided to fund this project for us. So we give them a big round of applause for that. And then there's the International AHC Research Consortium that Dr. McCarty talked about. We have invested in that. We also want to thank and recognize SIGI for organizing and approaching the Netherlands Association, the UK Association, and ourselves, and getting us all to partner together to fund the cloud platform for that project. So let's give SIGI a round of applause for that. That is a platform that, as was mentioned previously, that will house and analyze the comprehensive data, that should say, so sorry for the typo in the presentation. And then the AHC Observe project, of course, is our natural history project, and we will continue to fund that. We have given some good seed money that we will be co-funding with the French Association. And of course, here in the United States, at least for now, the primary collection points for that study are Duke and Columbia, although others are invited to join the consortium and join that effort as well. And then one of the things we want to try and keep in mind, and I know Dr. McCarty's done a good job, and other researchers have done some work in this as well, in educating and bringing up new clinicians and researchers. The more people that we have that are passionate about AHC, the better we're going to get this treated, and the faster we're going to get this cured. So we are going to look to fund an AHC research fellowship, to where these our experts can identify budding experts in the field and or attract qualified researchers to fill some of the research gaps that we may have as things progress, so we can actually fund them and attract them to do research in AHC. Rather than coming to us first, we want them to come, we want to incentivize them to get started. So we want to actually go out and recruit new researchers actively by the best way one can, giving them money. And of course, we will continue to fund, as we have from our inception, the annual research symposium series that brings the doctors and associations together to talk about that. I know it was announced that this year's is in Japan. We hosted it 2 years ago, and we'll continue to look for opportunities to potentially bring that hosted in the United States in the future. Some of our awareness operational goals, switching gears off of the research, is that we will continue, of course, our advocacy efforts to government entities. We will continue to participate in Rare Disease Week and in the in-district lobby days that we mentioned in Tony's conversation Thursday night. We will continue also to look to empower, since our focus is international, that we will empower families globally to interact with their governments. So we will look for ways to get people in different countries connected for Rare Disease Week. For example, one of our board members, Satish in India, was able to do a presentation in the Indian government on AHC during this past Rare Disease Week. That's actually posted on our website. You can see that. But we're going to look to empower other families in other countries to be able to do that as well, to raise awareness, raise the potential for them to get better care in those countries. But then we're also going to help people to tell their story locally. So thinking internationally and locally. So we're going to develop a template process for engaging local media regarding the AHC champion and the efforts CureAHC is undertaking to get to the cure. That way you can, either you directly or somebody in your family, if you're not, don't have the time or the comfort in engaging your local media outlets, but at least we'll have a way to help somebody close to you to do that. So your story can get told in your local community, raise the awareness. We have the tools. I mean, that brochure is set up so that our brochure is set up so that you can put your child right on the front if you would like, or we have those that you can use generically. We usually just put our son Matthew on the front there if you don't want your child on there. So that is one way that we can continue not only internationally but locally to get the word out for you. We'll continue, and as Haley mentioned, in our social media expansion. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the Google Grants on there. My bad. Yes, Google Grants is a program that Google does provide to nonprofits over $10,000 per month in free Google AdWords advertising. And we've worked with a company to take advantage of that program, and that has actually resulted in several newly identified AHC cases where they saw, they were researching symptoms and actually found our ads through that program. So that is a big awareness effort, and we will expand that to also the potential to reach that globally. Right now that's just been primarily in English-speaking countries, United States, Canada, Europe, but we'll expand that beyond in other languages. The social media expansion, we have done a great job on Facebook and Twitter, and we'll expand to some of the other platforms like Instagram to, again, reach potentially undiagnosed cases and also to raise awareness to attract potential supporters and donors. We're also going to look at the potential of sending some of our board members or even other families who are interested in being ambassadors for us to medical conferences such as child neurology conferences, pediatric conferences. Some hospitals do grand rounds where they present a particular case to educate their communities. I think some people have mentioned that during some of the other sessions. We will develop mechanisms to go ahead and empower people to be able to do that. And the chief aims, of course, of those are to find undiagnosed cases and to feed into the operational fundraising processes that we're looking for. Switching to more of our operational goals for the next couple of years, we will expand a volunteer program. So we're going to set up a process by where people will be able to learn more about the needs that our organization has for volunteers. So that maybe if you are trying to put on a fundraiser in your local community, we can post it out there of how many volunteers you need and a mechanism for them to sign up. Those are some of the ideas and things that we've had strategically for that. And then we'll have maybe a place where you can actually put out your skills assessment, where you can decide, well, here are the kinds of things I'm good at, here are the kind of things I want to do, so that we can actually start to match up some of those needs with people who can fulfill those needs and get those things done. Particularly for our board of directors, we are actively recruiting an additional member with some strong fundraising ability network. We have enlarged our roster by 4. We have filled several of those slots with some high caliber individuals. The ones we have been great. That's not to denigrate anybody at all. We are looking just, traditionally rare disease nonprofits have been solely families, but now we are actually being intentional in building an organization that has specific skill sets that we recruit for, so that we can take things to the next level. But we will continue to retain the people that we've had. That's why we expanded our board of directors. But with that also, we want to make sure we don't burn anybody out, because we know that the majority of our board is still made up of families, so we will start to work in some term limits so that people don't feel like they're stuck or don't feel like they have to stay on forever. And then with that, but they'll still have the opportunities, if they do rotate off, to serve our organization through development councils or advisory councils, because obviously everything we're doing for you, the families, so, and for our kids, so we want to make sure that we never lose sight of that ever, that what we do is moving in the directions that our families want it to be. To that also, we will make sure that we have officer development, so that we never lose any continuity of leadership. Even I myself, as co-founder and president, don't want to be president forever, so we will start the process of developing replacements along the way. And we'll set very defined expectations of our board members. I know sometimes we have not done that in the past, and we will be very clear and deliberate in that, so that people know if they are going to be stepping up and wanting to move into a board member position, what they're getting into. And we will continue to evaluate ourselves in the process and invite input and advice from all of you, our families out there, and our supporters, because we do want to be completely and totally transparent in everything we do. One of our other tools for awareness and operations, of course, is our website. We are in the process of reorganizing that content for ease of access. We're going to increase that content for more value to families, caregivers, supporters, and donors. And we are going to refresh, redesign that biannually to keep it nice and current. We have also actively engaged with an advisor who has decades of experience of working with nonprofit, has taught nonprofit management at such prestigious universities as the University of Chicago and Harvard. A gentleman by the name of Jim Toscano Advisors. He has helped us put together a comprehensive business plan that we'll be rolling out. This will be a great tool to use in terms of fundraising, particularly in attracting major donors, which will be part of our next assignment. And part of that is our case statement, so that we really make a case of the great work that we have been doing and the great work that is to come. And of course, we'll continue to refresh our promotional materials. Before you leave, we do still have some more of the brochures out there, card magnets and whatnot. We'll be continuing to refresh and redesign those. But of course, they do no good sitting in an office. They do great getting out there into the community. So we'll encourage everyone to use those and move those on. So we'll wrap this up here with The big thing, fundraising, that we've already talked about a little bit today. But all this stuff together here, of course, does cost money. And as Siggy quoted in the Human Time Bombs, if we had unlimited funds, he believes, and I tend to agree with him, that we could find the cure for this disease, or at least make a significant dent in this disease in a matter of a few years. So our goal is in 2 years, we're going to get to the mark of raising $2 million a year. That's a very lofty goal, but I think it's a very achievable goal. And here's the way we're going to do that. So we are going to expand our major donor funnel. We've started one, and we've done that very well thanks to a few key families. Again, these community awareness efforts that we're going to do, and the board of directors spheres of influence, and the profiling of high net worth individuals and foundations with affinity for diseases like ours, are going to be some of the ways that we can start to find those people. And if we just target 10 prospects per each of those sources and start to replace those as any of those either step up and say, hey, yes, I will support you, or opt out and say, no, sorry, that's not something we want to do. We just continue to keep that funnel going. And we'll leverage those awareness operational assets to achieve. And you'll be surprised, actually, we've made a lot of progress in doing that just from a few families. Imagine if we could get a few more on board. It just takes a few. And it really just takes one big person with a large sphere of influence, educated enough to make a huge difference. So don't feel like that is a daunting task at all. I think we together will achieve that task. Because not only will we be expanding our efforts at raising a funnel of major donors, again, grassroots events, we just had the presentation from Haley. It is easy, as I said, to get started in that grassroots effort. We'll roll out templates for a variety of fundraising events, some of the ones that Haley already talked about, with clear definitions of time commitments. We'll do some virtual events, auctions, active events, running, cycling, and so on. We've actually added to our board of directors an individual with expertise in grants. So that individual will start to target corporations and private foundations. We'll look at the potential to form small chapters of organizations, because there are a lot of innovative local funding opportunities. Sometimes it is rather simple to set up chapters of an organization without a lot of administrative red tape. If it's worth the effort for going after the grant, we'll look at doing that locally. We'll have the potential to explore some international grants and foundations, since we have had a few of those come in already. We've had funds raised from several different countries, from Chile, from India, from Indonesia, from the UK, from Denmark, a number of others that have come potentially from other foundations or other international grants. Also, one of the key things I wanted to mention in reference to that is some work we're doing with an organization called Biopontis Alliance. Biopontis Alliance, as Siggy will know, is an organization that is co-located both here in the States and also in Europe. In the States, it's actually located right in our backyard of Raleigh, Durham, and in Europe, it's headquartered in Brussels. And this organization is dedicated to rare neurological disease, so particularly diseases like ours. And their aim is to help move scientific breakthroughs in the university settings or research settings into actual viable candidates for investment from biotech firms. The nonprofit is made up of former executives from biotech firms, pharmaceutical firms, as well as experts in medicine and in government. And so as they say, their name Pontis is the Latin for bridge. They are to serve, they've put together a lot of processes and things to kind of remove that gap between scientific discovery and actual progression through pharmaceutical development. So, in other words, to remove a lot of the valley of death, as I've said, of that research process, particularly for pediatric neurological disease. So we're working with them to hopefully land us as one of their selected projects to work on. That could mean a very significant investment in the millions and millions of dollars. But part of that means we need to make sure we have our ducks in a row and present ourselves as a very viable candidate. And that's why we have these other goals here, to raise these funds, to do these operational things, to raise the kind of awareness, and to invest in the kinds of research that we're doing. Because if we attract that, then we really have a great shot at making a huge difference in a very short amount of time. And finally, one of the other things we're looking at doing potentially in our fundraising aspect is to create a membership thing, kind of an ongoing monthly donation program with incentives to support us to step up financially on an ongoing basis. Of course, we would never exclude any family from receiving help from Cure HC. You would never have to say you have to be a member of Cure HC to get help from us. Never, never. Just make that very, very clear. And of course, we have not fleshed out quite yet what those levels and perks look like, but this is certainly something we're thinking of that would be a big way to get some of our supporters, particularly through our social network, to step up. So let me end here with a good call to action, and I want to take some inspiration from another rare disease. It's a rare disease called giant axonal neuropathy, or GAN. And I met this family years ago, shortly after Matthew was diagnosed, the Sains family, their little girl, Hannah. And during this past 8 years, they've been able to, they've only found 30 cases of GAN in the world, but yet, and they weren't a particularly connected family, but through their efforts alone and some of their connected network, they raised $7 million in 10 years. They have gotten to a phase 3 clinical trial of a gene therapy. So, oh, sorry, we had some other stuff that didn't get edited out of there, so we'll just avoid that for a second. But really, what I'm trying to get from this here is that we should have an abundance mentality. Really, out there, someone in your network or community does have the time to be involved, the connections to help us achieve our goals, the heart to help. And as we've already seen, no amount is too small. What you've hopefully taken away from this conference is that the momentum we have going is real. The research is advancing rapidly, and our tremendous successes will breed even more success. So I leave you with our tag phrase that we truly are soaring on the wings of hope. And thank you again for a great conference, and thank you all for listening. Have a great and safe trip, everybody, and we'll keep you in touch with how to move forward on the things we've talked about here today. Thanks again.